The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And here we are.
Once again, another delve into the remote broadcasting. It's very interesting. I just received a message, a couple of messages from people. One was the fact that the state just announced that they've received a small fraction of the ventilator orders that they put in, which is going to be very interesting. Baker has said that state officials received a shipment of 100 ventilators, a fraction of the 1,400 requested from the national stockpile. Everyone seems to be complaining about the number of ventilators they received. COVID-19 testing facility for first responders opened Sunday in Foxborough after it was built in just 4 days. And Governor Charlie Baker said conversations are underway about setting up similar sites in Western Massachusetts and the Merrimack Valley. Baker said state officials received a shipment of 100 ventilators, a fraction of the 1,400 requested from the National Equipment Stockpile, and those ventilators will likely be distributed over the course of the next 24 hours. On Monday, Baker had predicted 1,000 ventilators would arrive by week's end. He stated, "We believe that the process as it has been laid out to us is going to be an incremental one." Baker said, "We don't believe this is the last shipment. We fully expect that we will get an additional ventilators over the next couple of weeks." I think that's very interesting that, they're asking for 1,400 and they got, so few. But again, everyone's complaining about the same thing. You've got to sparingly share them with everyone. Without doing that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I think that they're attempting to get the ventilators to the really hot areas first. So, and obviously this is a massive coordination effort that they take time to streamline it, and who knows what's going to really what's happening here, because we see all kinds of complaints. This morning I saw the Wisconsin governor, I believe it was, she was complaining about the feds should be running this in their totality, yet some governors want to run it statewide, and that's one of the problems I see. This is another it's become political. What they're trying to do is offset blame, and so this governor is saying, well, the feds should be running the whole thing, shouldn't be not the states. But yet other states said we want control, and the reality is that every state should be run by its government. This is the United States. It's not one state. It's not. That's the reason we have the electoral college and everything else to maintain the fact that states will be heard and have, some semblance of autonomy. Because the problem is, if you do that, now there'll be complaints that they're taking over the government of the states and blah blah blah. And I'm sure Gina Raimondo's not complaining about running things, because she seems to be really enjoying this role, because she's riding around in her SUV looking for.
She's looking for trouble.
Yeah, so
she's definitely looking for trouble. One of the things that I found interesting was yesterday, and it goes into effect today, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh issued a martial law type order, which has a curfew in place from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the city of Boston. Then all of a sudden it came out that it's not mandatory. He's expecting people to voluntarily do it. And he's having a hell of a time having people voluntarily stay at home. And the governor's still saying he's not going to issue that stay-at-home order, which I think is too late. I think he should have issued that already. Raimondo's done it, and I think it's necessary. I think we need a total lockdown nationwide. But again, you have governors that don't want to do that, and it just creates problems. There's 7 states which have not issued any lockdowns, and Georgia has opened the beaches for people to start using.
I was going to mention that. Yep.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You're asking for trouble.
Well, that's the problem. You've got these people, and everybody's gonna, and people ignore it. Like I said, Marty Walsh is going to make this voluntary. You can't make anything voluntary in this society because just look at it. I mean, even when there was a specific order not to congregate, they had the beaches. They were partying down there during spring break. People are having, intentionally having parties, and it's crazy. Then they had that, I don't know whatever happened to that pastor that got arrested for having a service with literally hundreds and hundreds of people at the service. Unfortunately, that's one of the problems. We suffer because of the inability for people in this country, especially in this country, to follow orders. In China they follow orders and they get shot. In other countries they follow orders because the society is far better at following rules, like in Japan.
Right.
But this country, this is why I've always been I know most people don't like the fact that they don't like this, but I think this country should do one thing that they do in Israel, and that is make everybody, male and female, at 18 years old go in the military for 2 years.
I agree with you. There. I think that, for them to learn some responsibility and understand what it takes to be in a specifically structured type of environment, because they don't understand structure. And that's one of the reasons why when they issue an order, people don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, take them, unwrap the cotton that you wrap them in and hit them in the basement with their sandwiches and being online, being commandos online. Take them away from their mommy and daddy, stick them in the military for 2 years. And then after 2 years, you turn them loose. And you know something? I think it would be productive in many ways. Number one, they'd learn how to follow orders and learn a little bit about the reality of interacting with people in a chain of command. Secondly, I think that at 20, after 2 years in the military, they would have a lot better idea of what they want to do with their life. And if they did go to college, you would see them perform a lot better. They would do less partying and more studying. Because I think statistically, I don't know if it's the same, I haven't seen that statistic in years, but most people in continuing ed, when older people go back to school to get an education, they actually go back to get an education.
Exactly.
Not like the rich ones that are on trial now for getting their daughters in here who said, well, I don't really want to go to college, but I just want to go there to party and, go to the games and have the experience. So they don't care about getting an education to get a better job, to become more well-rounded and have a better intellect. But no, they're just there to party, a lot of them. And you go to these colleges now, there are colleges with no admission standards. You just go in, sign up, and you can pay your tuition and stay there for maybe 8 years, and not even get an associate. But I think Israel, but Israel does it by necessity, obviously. They're surrounded by people that want to destroy them, and everybody in Israel has to realize that at some point in time, they may be fighting in the streets to protect themselves. So the mandatory military service for 2 years, and it's not you got to be in for 4 or you got to 2 years. I mean, 18 to 20. I mean, it's not like they're taking a big chunk of your life away. I think it has far more positives than negatives.
I agree with you. As I said, I thought about that for a long time, that, it's about time that we have that. People say bring the draft back, but I'm not sure if the draft will do anything. I think that if we have a mandatory service component, I think we'll do better. Because again, 18 to 20 are the party years. That's part of the party years where people are just partying and, getting in trouble. So I think that you take that away, there'll be more civilized adults, to put it bluntly.
No, you're right. And the thing about Israel is there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Even if you reinstituted the draft in this country, how many people evaded the draft during wartime? In Vietnam, if you could afford to go to college, you didn't have to go in the military. If you had figured out a way, you had enough money to get in the National Guard, like Bush did. He jumped 5,000 people and got into the Air National Guard of Alabama. And Cheney, the vice president of this country, got 5 deferments.
Right.
5, not 1. 5 deferments. He never served. So, the problem, even with the draft in this country, that's the reason that that old adage that they use about the military. They say, rich old men start wars and poor young men die in them.
Right.
Those people who serve, because you don't see rich kids. I think at one point in time, there was not one congressman in the United States who had a child in a combat unit in the military. So even if they do go in the military, for the most part, they get assigned somewhere that they're not in harm's way.
Right. They get a stateside job or something.
At least if they put a uniform on, you could say, well, they put a uniform on. But you get people like Cheney who never served a day and got 5 deferments. It's unfair. So our draft is always unfair. The Israeli method is easy. You're 18, you're gone.
Yeah.
Later. And I mean, look, we're not being Sparta. We're not taking the children away from their parents at 7 and training them to be soldiers till they're 21 and then stick them in the military until they're 30 and then release them back into society. But, 2 years and 2 years where you're being actually taught discipline and how to follow orders. And as you said, in the prime party years, so rather than partying, you're in the military learning how to actually about the real world. So
and becoming a civilized adult.
But let's get back to the rip. I saw you flush our count as of 4 o'clock on Sunday. Was 62?
62, correct.
So we'll wait this evening for the number, and supposedly these 2 weeks are supposed to be the peak.
Right. As a matter of fact, the Surgeon General said that this is going to be worse than Pearl Harbor or 9/11. So, I mean, for them to bring up Pearl Harbor and 9/11, you're looking at some serious deaths, I believe. But one of the things I thought was funny about the Fall River counts, and I heard this morning, I believe it was on Channel 10. I guess there's 2 firefighters and 1 dispatcher that are out with the coronavirus. So, I mean, it's going everywhere. And when the first responders are getting hit, it's kind of interesting to see how are they going to take care of this? How are they cleaning up? My big concern when they had found 1 firefighter that was positive for coronavirus was, did they do a thorough cleaning of the firehouse? And I meant everything: the trucks, the EMS vehicle, the tables, the chairs, everything. And I don't know if they did that. I'm sure that they probably attempted to do that, or they did it, but it would be nice to hear what actually happened. And that's always a question.
Well, it's difficult, especially with those, especially the fire station, because fundamentally they're living in there, they're sleeping in there.
Exactly.
So even if they try to, clean that place thoroughly, if somebody's in there, even if they're distancing within the station itself, they share the kitchen. They have to eat in the kitchen. Well, I guess they don't have to eat in the kitchen. They could eat in a cubicle or something. But the fact is, they are sharing that space. And with every shift that comes in, new people. And if it's on the surfaces, I'm not sure it's possible for anybody or any entity to do 100% perfect job of sanitizing. Although I saw something on TV with this. They had this company now that comes in with some kind of I don't know, some kind of fog they do. I don't know, ultraviolet something or other.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The one that has the electrostatic attachment to the walls and all of that comes. It's like a big gun type of device.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. What was that movie, Ghostbusters?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I guess that's popular to use right now. That the company's making some money. There's a lot of companies making money out there.
Yeah, but it's hard, and even in the police department. I mean, if they're in the police station, they're sharing that space, and I don't think you can get 100% of the services. And if you're in a squad car, if you're in a patrol car, you're gonna, that every shift a new guy gets in, and even if you do it, it's difficult. And the other problem is that once you start getting cases, you deplete the manpower, and so what are you gonna do? You have to replace them with overtime, and after a while, they're gonna get burnt out. People can't work, a week in a row without a break. Just to go home to sleep and come back and work, 16 hours a day or something like that. So it is an issue with departments, and obviously the departments that get hit the most are kind of the smaller departments and the medium-sized departments. New York's got, I don't know, they got 10 or 12,000 firefighters. So if they get them, if somebody gets it and some get it, they do have a larger pool of personnel to kind of fill the gaps. Because when you get it on a smaller department, once you get 5 or 6 or 7 people out, and that constitutes like 20 or 25% of an on-duty shift, you got a problem.
I agree. It's very interesting to see what happens. And when you look at New York, because they have over 500 police officers that are out, but they have 36,000 police officers in New York City. 36,000. That's a big chunk of change. You know what I mean? That's a lot of people. So when you've got 500 out, it's going to hurt, but you got some people you can move in to fill those spots. Right, exactly. And so it's apples and oranges, for sure. One of the things I wanted to bring up today, which was discussions that I had with people over the weekend, a lot of which was done obviously either on phone or via instant messenger or direct messenger, was people were getting concerned, and I put this in the flush, that there's a possibility of a Prop 2.5 override question for the city to come to the people of Fall River and ask them for a Prop 2.5 override. Now, we already knew we were $4.7 million in the hole, or with a gap, quote unquote, the gap. But this is going to cause more of a gap. And it's quite possible that the administration may be looking at the only way of getting around this gap is to ask for a Prop 2.5 override to ask for more money. Now, the state is also looking at a huge shortfall in their revenue. And they've already spent $1.1 billion, which they mismanaged by just going out and spending it. Well, we got extra cash, so let's spend it. And as you always say, Milton Friedman said it well, give them enough sand, give them the desert, they'll be out of sand in a couple of days. What are they going to do? You know how they're gonna meet up their shortfalls in revenues? They're gonna do cuts to local aid. So you're gonna see, again, like we saw during the Carrera administration, 9C cuts, which means we're gonna lose police and fire. Any way you look at it, we're gonna have a problem with our budget, because the city council hasn't even met to discuss it yet. They haven't met to do anything. Where's our government? We have no government. We have a school committee that's meeting, and they're taking on some issues. They were negotiating contracts at the last school committee meeting.
Yeah.
But our city council hasn't done anything. But our city council president is having meetings with his real estate staff via Zoom. So why can't he do that with the city council?
Well, we got a major problem, CJ, with this, because look, This is absurd. This is the government at its worst. This is the government this is the reason that people want to basically overthrow government, because they never stop spending money. We had, as you said, we had a 1.1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion surplus. But rather than saving it, or saving at least some of it, it's gone. We remember that a year ago we had, supposedly during the campaign season, we had an $8 million surplus. Now we have a $4.7 million deficit, which is now in gap in any way you want to call it, which means that our financial team was off by $12.7 million in their assessment of the financial condition of Fall River. So what is their answer? To tax people who are out of a job. It may take this economy years, not months, to recover. Restaurants, you think people are going to go flocking to the restaurants, and they're gonna all make up all the money they've lost and bring back all the people. People have lost their salaries. They're gonna have a hard time. Car dealers are making deferments on payments. Mortgage payments are being deferred. But the government never stops trying to take it up. They're going to use this for an excuse to take more of your money when you have less money than you've ever had, because we've got the highest unemployment rate. I think more people filed for unemployment than they did in the last major recession.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting was, because you know how the way they always sell like a Prop 2.5 override is, well, if you don't give it to us, we're going to have to cut police and fire. I spoke with a number of people, and one lady I spoke with yesterday evening after the flush came out was adamant. She goes, if they want to cut police and fire, let them. I'm tired of them wasting my money. That's a quote. Let them cut police and fire because I'm sick and tired of them wasting my money. That's what the people are getting to. And the government better understand this.
And you're right, CJ, but the problem is that this is, again, where the city council has to step up. Police and fire should not be the first ones on the chopping block to scare the people. People are fearful enough already about the coronavirus.
Exactly.
The image of this virus is going to be gone. It's going to be around long after this virus has gotten a vaccine and is maybe a thing of the past, or something as common as the flu because of medications. But the long-term effects of this are not going to go away. And for the government to say, look, police and fire are the last ones, but if you have to reduce, you have to reduce. The reality is that we have to start tightening up our belts. We have to look for ways to shift personnel. We have to look for people. We have to look for alternatives. What are the alternatives? Do we go to there are alternatives with public safety. I'm not going to go there yet, but I'll tell you what. If they're looking at a Proposition 2.5 override, I can guarantee you CAG will be looking at a Proposition 2.5 underride.
Oh, definitely.
Crazy. This is absolutely insane. We're looking at them shifting the burden by putting people in the GIC so they'll pay, instead of paying $50 for prescription, they're going to pay $165. And they made $8 million the last time they shifted that out of the pockets, and they went in front of the council and lied to the city council and said it was a cost savings when it wasn't. The health care cost exactly the same amount. The only difference was that the people the city employees got an $8 million pay cut out of their pockets for the cost of their health care. And now they're looking at it again, and shame on the mayor for looking at this, because he was complaining about how much health care costs went up. Well, they would have went up quadruple. They would have tenfold if we didn't do what we're doing. We have one of the lowest cost health care plans we've run under budget for years. They're looking at hitting the people in the pocket again, city employees. They're looking at hitting the taxpayer again, instead of looking at how to control government spending. Why don't you get rid of the person who kept telling you had $8 million?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Where is it?
They were a $5,000 pay raise and an automatic cost of living raise.
And as you and I have spoken about, they're saying there's a $4.7 million gap. But where's the $8 million we had? That makes it $13 million somewhere.
12.7 to be.
Good. Well, call me a liar if it's 0.3 million.
But that's what I said earlier.
Right.
We're looking at that individual who just got a pay raise of $5,000 and an automatic cost of living raise, which will be tacked on later, who made a $12.7 million error in what she represented to the city council not that long ago.
Right.
So
and you know,
he's still employed. That's the same firm that didn't know that there were $2 million of employee money in the employee account in 1991, but they're still around. They're
right.
like ticks. They're like Lyme disease. If you don't get them early, you get it for life.
Exactly. One of the things that I had mentioned also in the weekend flush was the fact that if we need to make cuts, let's make cuts at these upper echelon salaries, because they're not in the same universe as what Fall River salaries should be at. They base salaries they give here in Fall River to administrators out of Boston, which is not our universe. And you understand that better than anyone else. That's definitely not our universe. So why are we paying them this money? Oh, well, we can't get anyone else to do it. Well, maybe, you can't get anyone else to do it because they know you're going to pay them more. I don't know. I mean, just remember the New Bedford story.
Yeah, it's true. But remember one thing, CJ, and everybody tries to forget this, but we're not going to let it. We had more city employees, 300 firefighters, 300 police officers. DPW was 4 times larger than it is today. And the department heads ran their departments. We didn't have a CFO. We didn't have a city administrator. We didn't have any of these jobs. Mary Sahadi's job, how old is the CFO? 3 years, that job?
Yeah, something like that.
All they ever do is add more people to continue to screw the books up. So they added before Carlton Viveris with a GED was running a city with a treasurer and an auditor, and we had plenty of money. Then they hired a city administrator and a personnel director, now a CFO and a chief of staff. And have we become more efficient?
Not at all. Not at all.
So rather than talk about a 2.5, Mr. Mayor, let's talk about going back to the old days. You're the mayor, you're the head, you got department heads who are commissioned to run their departments. Get rid of the city administrator. Get rid of the CFO. Get rid of the chief of staff. We didn't have them when we had more people on a payroll.
And think about it. If we have to make cuts, let those be the cuts.
If we get rid of Mary Sahadi, we can hire 2 cops and a firefighter, or 2 firefighters and a cop.
Right. And as I was saying, let's get rid of the upper staff. If we got to make cuts, don't cut police and fire. Don't start at the bottom of the ladder, because you know what? The people at the bottom always take it in the face. Start at the top. Turn around and tell people like Mary Sahadi. Tell people like your chief of staff, you need to take a pay cut. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we've got to cut police and fire, you have to take a pay cut. If you can't take the pay cut, we'll just get rid of the position.
You're being magnanimous, CJ. Take a pay cut. I say that I can prove that a fire crew with 4 people is far more efficient and does a better job and protects property and life better than a 3-man crew. That's statistically, I got thousands of pages to prove that.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I've seen those statistics.
But I can also prove that this city ran better with more personnel to deal with virtually none of these jobs, with no CFO, with no city administrator.
Yeah.
I got the Fall River Fire Department. There were 300 men on that department. And when I left, there were 255.
Right.
And the cut was because they chose to pay overtime rather than to put those people on.
And now that overtime is costing them more than they expected.
That's right. But the thing is, we can prove that this city ran efficiently without all these high-paying jobs. And it seems that the more personnel they add, the more screwed up the numbers get.
Exactly.
And
Well,
show and tell. I'll show and tell with anybody.
All right. Well, we're down to our last minute, and we never have enough time. That's always for sure. We never have enough time. But I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, read The Flush. It's very informative this weekend. It's still available online, and we're going to be here on Wednesday, we hope. You take care. Have a great day, and remember, stay angry. You, Chip?
Stay healthy. And if you want, I got a Nyla pretzel for anybody in the city that wants to chew it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.